Hello and welcome back to Not Rolled From YouTube channel. My name is Ben Banks. The second episode of our Euro 2020 series, Scotland's return to a major tournament for the first time since 1998. We're putting together a collection of interviews as we build up to that and during the competition as well. So do subscribe to our channel and like this video. We're going to have plenty of content surrounding the Euros over the course of June and July. First episode of this series was with Stuart Regan, former SFA Chief Executive, touching mainly on the performance schools that have helped bring the likes of Billy Gilmore and Nathan Patterson into the Scotland national team setup. So do watch that once you've finished this one. This episode with David Longwell, currently with Shrewsbury Town in English League One, but previously was with St Mirren as their head of academy. He might have missed out on the likes of Riyad Mahrez at one point in time, but he did bring through the McGinn brothers into St Mirren's first team, and obviously John McGinn will play for Scotland as a key player at the Euros this summer. And also in touching on some of the current St Mirren players that are still there and that he helped bring through from as early as 5 years old, talking about Ethan Erron, Jay Henderson, these type of players. So we hope you do enjoy a really interesting episode, giving an insight into sort of the thinking behind the youth coaching at St Mirren and some of Scotland's key players that have been playing for the national team over the last year. So we do hope you enjoy. Do remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, take it easy. But you're obviously down in League One. How's the season been? Long?
Yeah, good. I mean, during this season, I've moved up to work with the first team as well. So I was obviously academy manager. I've been here for 2 years when I come back from America. But the new manager came in November and he asked me to help them. And I stayed there because then he opened off ill. So it's been it was a tough season because obviously like most teams with COVID and all the stuff going on, and then obviously our manager was off for 4 months, so just put a bit more responsibility into the assistant Aaron Wilbraham myself. But no, it's been a challenge, but it's been good. We managed to. I mean, when we took over, it was that we're sitting 23rd. And there was a wee bit of bother, but since Steve came in, Steve Cotterill, we've managed to get a bit of upsurge and finished off the season 17th, 16th. So it was positive for that point of view.
Yeah, no, I think he came in and made a massive difference in the first 5-6 weeks, and all of a sudden he obviously took really unwell, and it was. I don't think MD realises how serious it was because he was really ill. I mean, he was in intensive care. So it was, like, as I said earlier, it's just a really challenging season because he's come in, the team is struggling, obviously, he's got an upsurge in it, and all of a sudden, like, I think there was about within the club, 15 to 20 people all got COVID. I had it myself, a lot of other players had it, staff had it, you know, and in the short time that even I've had it, it wasn't a nice illness at all, but the manager, obviously, he took it seriously ill. The fact he was then not back in the building for 4 months. So again, if you can imagine the manager not being there for 4 months, it's hard for players, hard for the staff, because he's got a bit of an aura, their manager, and he really does know his stuff. His knowledge and his experience is second to none. So it was challenging, and emotionally it was obviously draining for the players just not having the manager there. But we got there. You know, it was a case of all the staff in the first team, particularly like Aaron Wilbraham, who he brought in. Me and him worked really hard along with the rest of the staff to try and keep things going, and Aaron was like a direct link to the managing every day just to make sure we're doing the right things. So it was draining, but it was good because we managed to get positivity at the end of it.
Yeah, I think when people talk about like COVID and like footballers and all that, I think they think it's just like asymptomatic or that, and they go away for 2 weeks and that's it. But because I know a wee bit about it, because obviously it made a lot of headlines and things like that, because he was sort of probably one of the first managers or players to take it properly bad.
Yep.
I think people just think managers and stuff are indestructible, but very obviously.
No, I agree. I think like because like football is a sport and everybody's like, I mean, our manager's very fit. He's a very fit man, even though he's in his 50s. He's very fit. So to him to get affected by it was a bit of a shock for everybody. You know, I mean, some of the players did have it and didn't have symptoms. Some were ill for a good week or so, and it just depends on the individual. But as you say, people probably don't realise how serious it was for Steve at the time, because he did take it really bad. He was in and out of hospital. I mean, for him, I mean, he's such an active, on the ball, very practical manager. He's on every single day. Even when he was in hospital, he was still on, watching all the games and speaking to us and watching training back. He's incredible as an individual, his work ethic. but a lot of it, he still was ill. You know, he was on a CPAP machine getting oxygen. There was a number of other complications that happened to him during it, and it was mostly for him and his family. It was a really, really tough time, and the club were just trying to support him. But again, you can't keep a good man down because he just was still involved in everything, still talking to the players. On a match day, he's in hospital in a bed, and he's on a loudspeaker in the dressing room talking to the players. And that tells you everything you need to know about him as a guy, you know.
For you though, I mean, I know you've obviously been at clubs like St Mirren and then over in America, but good hands-on sort of first team experience for you?
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, again, when you're working with somebody like him, I think as well we're fortunate. The dressing room is very good. The players are good. You know, it's always difficult, and you've got 20 odd players, you've got all different types, and to be fair, the ones in there, they're actually a good bunch of boys and a good bunch of people, and that makes everything a lot easier when the managers come in, and he obviously changes things. Myself and Aaron then just supporting them. The players are very engaging, took things on, and they had the manager and the staff's back, which obviously sometimes isn't always the case when you're in that environment. And I think that, to be fair to them, they all bought in. They knew we were in a position that we had to get out of. And you hear a lot of stories at other clubs where you've got players and there's agendas and egos going around, and it happens. But the good thing from our point of view was that in this dressing room there wasn't. So for that point of view, it made it easier. And it was a chat. The players, you've got to give them some amount of credit because they play a lot more games than you can imagine, even up in Scotland. It was every Saturday, Tuesday. It was even more compressed because of COVID. And you're asking these guys to play Saturday, Tuesday. And League One is very demanding. You know, it's such a hard league. It's very physical. It's very high intensity. There's a lot of teams that do play football. There's a bit of a mixture within it. And again, really, you get big clubs like Sunderland, Ipswich, Hull City. So, I mean, the games were grueling, demanding. And again, from the players' point of view, it was just a case of trying to set them up every week. The good thing is the manager likes things done properly. Like you'll see some managers, it's like maybe just a quick fire the sides and a little bit, but we did everything right for every game. Every game prior to it, we do shape, and again, how we can win the game against opposition. We do analysis after every game, like to review. We then preview the next opposition. Every single week, I mean, the players always did set plays, did everything because the manager wanted them to be as well educated and prepared as possible, and that didn't change for any game. From we played Southampton the FA Cup to we played like Ipswich at home near the end of the season, even the last game of the season against Crewe, which obviously not a lot to play for, we still did everything, and the manager really demands that it's not just off the cuff, it's done properly. And those standards, I think, are great from a personal point of view to be involved in. And all me and Aaron would do is just go out there every week and prepare the players. And again, I give them a lot of credit because they took things on, they listened, they weren't bitchy, they weren't negative, they were just on board and trying to do the right things by the football club.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, I got in contact with you, speaking before started recording. Jim Goodwin's been down here in Scotland, speaking up St Mirren's academy for some amount of time. You've got guys like Ethan Erahon and Jay Henderson, Dylan Reid as well coming through that academy. Do you still keep in sort of contact with sort of what's happening at St Mirren and sort of who's coming through?
Yeah, I mean, I still speak to Alan McManus because Alan when I was leaving St Mirren, we wanted to put something in place when I was there, it was years of work then. I mean, we worked for years, and I don't think people now realise how much was put in, that we built it up from younger ages. Like John McGinn, we had since he was 7 years of age, all the way through the academy, and he is where he is now. And again, Dylan Reid, Ethan, and Jay are all players that I'd signed way back in the day. You know, they're kids that we'd in there. Ethan was in there since he was 5. Dylan, again, he's in there since he was about 7, maybe 6. He's for Ayrshire. And I'm still in a group chat with a lot of the coaches that worked then, and they were these guys that actually started this off for all these young players. And I think that even Jay Henderson, his dad's a great guy, Darren, involved a lot of the junior football down in Ayrshire. And I remember these guys inside out because we had them as young kids, and it's just great to see that 5-6 years later, since I've moved on, there's still players coming through from what we put in place. And that's a testament to all the guys that worked for myself at the club, and then a testament to the guys that are there that have continued that, because what we had going in there was remarkable for a small provincial club. You can compare it to a lot of bigger clubs. They've not produced as many players, but it was years and years of work and a lot of hard work, dedication from a lot of people at the club. And it's just great to see that those kids that we signed away back there are still there, and they're trying to follow in the same footsteps as Kenny McLean, Lewis Morgan, John McGinn, where they've went into the first team, and then hopefully they can then progress their career after that.
I don't know how big you are on your podcast or that, but did you listen to Graham Hunter's interview with John a few weeks ago?
I've not heard it. No.
I was wondering because he gives you a mention in it. It mentioned apparently you teaching him Zidane turns at Love Street.
Yeah, I've seen something on Twitter about that, because see myself, there was a boy away back in the day, Andy Hogg, who we worked at St Mirren right back in the really early days, and we actually had Stephen McGinn used to play with Andy with his boys club team, believe it or not. And Stephen we signed when he was like 16, 17. And obviously Andy brought John in right at the bottom end as well. It's remarkable that two brothers come in at different times and both have went on to really good careers. Obviously John's kicked on to an incredible level. And we used to, as John said in that article, when the kids were younger, adamant that they actually get better with the ball. And adamant that, everybody likes to win, but our fundamental mindset was about developing players for the long term. So the kids at those younger ages, we used to do loads of skills, loads of tricks for them, because it helps them as they get older, loads of technical work and a lot of pride for our point of view when you've seen the way we played football. And a lot of times against your bigger clubs, Rangers, Celtic, and we used to play better football on a lot of them and actually at times even beat them. And still doing it from a developmental point of view. It wasn't just a case of booting it long, hoping to win the game. And a lot of clubs are like that, where they don't want to build out, they don't want to put the kids under pressure. We were adamant that we were going to do that right the way through. So guys like John were put in an environment where they had to take the ball, they had to take the ball under pressure, they had to make those decisions. And if you look at it now, it's just great to see that he still does that trick, still uses his big backside to wriggle his way out of things, and it's just great that he can remember that. I still speak to John regularly, to be fair, usually by text. Sometimes I spoke to him on the phone. He's such a top person. He comes from a great family, to be fair, really good people, and you can see how well he's been educated as a young man, and all we did was try and push that and try and drive those same standards, and it's just great to see how he's doing. And he's somebody that any young player can look as an example. There's a really good story, I don't know if you've seen it, about John. We used to always be adamant about young boys helping with kit, young boys helping out. And Gordon Strachan did an article a way back about when he first went away with the Scotland team, and all the players come off the bus. And players are players, they're like a little bit of a swagger. And John was the first guy to go underneath and start helping with the kit. And he always remembered that, Strachan, and then I think he gave him his debut after that. But that tells you what John's like. He's making his international debut, but he's still happy to go and lift something and pick something up because his values are so high. And there's no surprise to people, once he did develop, because his body took a long time to grow, that his willingness and his drive to get better, his values of being a good person. And again, MD, you talk about, I'll just speak highly about John, and you can only give him the praise that he deserves at the level he's playing at. But to have somebody like that at 6 and 7 in an indoor hall at St Mirren under the stands, and he's still doing the same sort of skills now, then it's testament to the work done in the academy at St Mirren, and then more importantly, the work that he's done to get better and improve himself.
Yeah, because I know John McGinn, it's a shame, obviously Kenny's injured for the Euros, but yeah, there was plenty more that came through the academy at that time, but they two are obviously the headline ones. Must have been quite nice for you. I think Kenny McLean replaced John McGinn for Scotland in the October or the November games coming on to each other. So I mean, for you and the guys that were around that time, must have been something to sort of see that off the back of everything that happened in November.
Yeah. Oh no, listen, it's amazing. Like when you look at the progression of these players, like Kenny was one. I've asked before about it. Kenny was another kind of late developer. He was released to Rangers like under 15s because they just didn't think he was going to progress. But what he held was he was so good with the ball. Now, granted, he was a small, scrawny little kid. He just had to grow, that was all. But when he came into us, I think our style of play suited him as well, because we always played football, and it really helped him develop because it suited his style. And then when you see Kenny's one of the ones, I've said this openly before, I think he could have went down to England before he did. I think that he went to Aberdeen, it's helped him to grow. as in like a young man, but he was always good enough to go down south. You know, it just took a little bit longer for him. And you see how well he's done at Norwich. And the great thing from a personal point and from an academy point of view is that both these boys were signed in our academy, identified by myself, my staff, worked with them, and they're both playing for Scotland at an international level. And then Kenny get a lot of plaudits when he scored that penalty. No, everybody that knows Kenny McLean when he walked up knew he was going to score that penalty. Such confidence about himself, you know. He's got I texted him last week just to say I got to see about his injury, and you know, and it's just disappointing for him as a young player that a chance to go and play at the Euros, but that is what it is. But still good to see two of those boys progress to the level they're playing at. But there was many more. You see, like obviously Lewis Morgan's over playing at Inter Miami. He's playing with guys like Gonzalo Higuain. You know, it's incredible to see another great kid, Lewis. And then there's other boys still playing in Scotland.
So I was looking up it because Jim's been speaking about the academy and going terms and things like that this season. When I was doing my research, did you have a hand in the Riyad Mahrez stuff? Because obviously that's all. St Mirren was a trending topic when he scored 2 goals in the Champions League semi-final even a couple of weeks ago. Were you around the time when he sort of came in?
Yeah. So basically, I'll tell you this. I did a big article for the BBC last week on this, right? Basically, there was an agent called Jake Duncan, great guy. He was also the tour manager for GLS. Remember GLS, the band?
Aye.
He was a really good guy. So Jake is well known in Scotland, and he used to bring loads of boys over from France. They would go into Airdrie, they would go into Morton, they would go into here and there and everywhere. So he get in touch with me regarding like some younger players. So he used to bring me over like sometimes like 5 and 6 boys at a time. We would ship them in. They would stay at the Abbey Inn in Paisley. They would come in and trial, blah, blah, blah. And Riyad came in along with another 4 or 5 boys. Now, Riyad right away showed he had really good ability, but he was very underdeveloped, but very similar to what we did as an academy. When I looked at Kenny McLean, Lewis Morgan, we picked them up. They had a lot of development to go, so I've always had that mindset. The only hard fact with Riyad at the time was that Riyad was only 3 months left of like, an academy age, so he had to go and play in the first team next. And even though he did well at the time, I spoke to Jake on the phone. I said, Jake, this boy's very good, or we'll keep him longer. But the decision for him to be kept longer, it wasn't my decision, unfortunately. So it was a case at the time the management was letting them see him. They did watch him for a little bit in a game, but at that time, they just didn't feel he was ready for first team football, which maybe he wasn't. But you're trying to look at it, obviously, longer term. But at the time, and I always say this to people, it's hard for managers because they look at the here and the now, and they look at they need to win games of football. And obviously, I think the striker at the time he had was somebody like Billy Mehmet. And Billy's a big guy, blah, blah, blah. And I think at that time, for the management at that time to give Riyad a contract, it just wasn't the right timing, whatever. But again, great talent. All my boys loved him because he used to run rings around us at training. You know, he was there for a couple of months. And I tried to keep him as long as I could. But again, try to get them. It wasn't my decision to give first team contracts out, and he's then obviously went back to France. But if you look at it, it took him a long time to develop from then. He went and played amateur football, and he was still playing like League B in France at 23 before he went to Leicester. So he's a great example for MD to look at, that you need to be aware of the long-term development of players. And again, we've done well personally. When I look at guys like Kenny, and I look at guys like John, and I look at guys like Lewis, they were all late developers. You've just got to have that patience. And then also, as I said in this article last week, the structure in Scotland at that point I didn't think was great for young players, because back in the day, it's like at the end of that academy age, you really need to get a first team contract. But if the structure had been more like under 20s, I could have maybe given an extra bit of time, like an extra year. Unfortunately, the structure wasn't like that. So it was either first team or nothing. And you try to keep him in as long as you can. But again, for him to go straight into your first team at the time,
cool. Right.
You there?
I've got one more question before my Wi-Fi just explodes or something. Obviously,
Go on.
you've obviously had experience with St Mirren. You're down in England, and you've had that spell in America. For MD, for any Scottish players that are sort of looking to forge a career in football as hard as it is, especially now. What would your sort of advice be as a youth coach?
Honestly, hard work. I know it's boring and whatever else, but if I look at, I was talking to some young players down here last night. I've managed to get, there's a couple of boys I've picked up down in Shrewsbury that have made their first team debut recently. But then when I'm talking to the younger ones, like they've got to keep being better with the ball. I know it's basic and everything else, but I don't think enough young kids practice on their own, because everything in life, there's other things to do. And again, if you ask like John McGinn, from the time he was in our academy, he battered them with technique and battered them to play football in the right way. So what John would have got all back then is he's working with the ball 3-4 times a week with us. John would maybe go and do extra stuff on his own. And then when you're playing the games, you would force them to play football so they're getting better with pressure. And then the rest of that comes through. So any young player now, sometimes they're not training enough, they're not doing enough, they've always got to do extra. And you never know in football. If you look at John, where he's got to when he was like maybe 15s, he was struggling because his body hadn't developed, but he's had to have such resilience and dedication to get and keep working. And you look at some young players, sometimes it takes longer than others to make it in the game, so they can't get too downbeat. Part and parcel of football is you're going to get rejection. You're not going to get everything your own way. So you've got to have a resilient character and mentality to keep working, to keep doing the right things. And then if the structure where you are is right, I just keep going back to what we did at St Mirren. And you look at the players still coming through at St Mirren that were signed away back when I was there, that it tells you if you're doing the right things, you'll get there. And if you've got the right values and the right people around you, then it's a better chance for you. But those individuals have got to work, they've got to practice as much as possible. You've got to, unfortunately, look at your fitness and your diet more than everything else, because nowadays you've got to be an athlete as well as being able to play. So all these things, if they really want to do it, they've got to make sure they do as much as they can and still enjoy it, obviously. You know, that's something that young players sometimes, like, they go out there and are a bit lazy. Honestly, it winds me up. You're out there, you've got to work hard. If you work hard, you'll enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, you work hard, and it keeps going backwards and forward. And eventually you've got opportunities, and eventually you get rewards. You'll get nothing for not working in this day and age. So